So guys, if you are not blown up by the frameworks shown today, I will give you a final push. So I'm going to talk about a new framework out here. I should come here? OK, yeah. Zafar was standing here. Why not? OK. So let's look into it. It has three core primitives: resumable, progressive, and reactive. Just forget them. I'm going to talk about them very soon. So just before that, you probably guys have noticed I have a logo in here. This is hand-painted by my dad last night. Shout out to him. And I have tweeted about it, and actually, the framework author retweeted it. So it's there. So I don't know how many of you know this guy. His name is Mishko Hevre, and he's the founder of Angular. I think many of you heard of it. He also a founder of Karma, if you have ever written tests. If not, bad guys. And finally, he's also a founder of Qwik. He's a big shot guy. I would say that. There are other authors also, like Adam Bradley, who is a founder of Stencil and Ionic, and Manu, who is also a founder of Stencil and Ionic. So let's go into it. Next slide. Why was this framework created at all? Like, I think we already have SolidJS, we have Svelte, and now we have Qwik with a fancy logo out there. So we should give a thought. Do we really need a new framework or not? So I'm going to make a lot of claims today in the next 20 minutes. But keep in mind that I put a QR code here. So they're not my claims. They are claims on the website. So this is a graph pulled out from HTTP archive. It's tracking all the website all the way from 2011 to 2023. And this is a graph of amount of JavaScript we are pushing. And that's just median. If you see the light part of it, that's the real number out there. And I predict future based on past. So we have been pushing a lot of JavaScript, and we will be pushing on it. And if you think it won't be like that, just use Figma or Miro, and you will see. Or VS Code on the browser. So I'm not going to deny the fact that we're not going to ship more JavaScript. We have to find different ways to solve a problem we have in past. So this is a tool created by Builder.io. It's called Performance Insights. It's an extension of Google Page Insights. And it is the output from a very major airline website in Europe. For branding reasons, I'm not going to take the name. But you can see that if you just you put a name of a website, and it analyzes the website for you. And it shows that if you just optimize JavaScript, you get 84% score. By the way, their score is 14 there. So it means that on a slow mobile, it takes 35 seconds for them to time to interact. So just keep in mind, time to interact is very different than first input delay. It is the time by which you can actually interact with the site, not look at the site or click on empty buttons. So let's go next. So how to make a faster web apps? Less JavaScript. But how? To solve this problem, we go to our frameworks, and that's kind of a baseline for us. So less JavaScript is the same answer. Like if somebody is poor, you just tell him, get the money. But how? So we're going to look at it how. So this research is done by Ryan Caranato, the founder of SolidJS. So benchmarking is it's one of the biggest lie in the market. You benchmark sites with a very limited components. So what Ryan Caranato did, he benchmarked the to-do apps. And what you see on an x-axis is amount of to-do apps he increased over a period of time. And if you see, bundle increased really high. Like even like he did a very unbiased research there, and even Solid is quite there. So when you increase the lot of components, these frameworks do not scale well. So you keep on pushing lot and lot JavaScript, and you get a linear graph like this. So probably you see a small framework, and you see a very to-do app or a counter app, and you say, man, this is fast. But you're not going to make to-do app a lot. So we have a problem like this. We wanted a banana, but we got a gorilla with a banana and a jungle around it. So I think our frameworks are not helping a lot. So why our frameworks are doing it? But you have to go a little bit back in the history and think of SPAs. So SPAs are not a replacement of MPAs. They were apps, actually. So you do not work with browser standards. You send the empty HTML, and you create everything there. You literally send everything out there. They were actually a replacement of a desktop apps. That's where we came from. Like SPAs were a successor of a desktop app, not the successor of MPAs. And our current meta frameworks are not able to solve this problem because they are functionality made over the frameworks which were not made for web. So these are after improvements, and when it doesn't matter how much sugar coat you them, the fundamentals will still be of SPAs. And what we need something is this blue line. We don't need to ship more and more JavaScript if we increase interactivity or if we make much bigger apps. So we need that blue line there. And just briefly, I'm going to show you that that equation there is a representation of that graph. So all the frameworks right now play around with bundle sizes and constant size, but content, it's a multiplication factor. If you see how big of complexity works, so amount of components you're going to ship, it's gonna not exponential, it's linearly going to increase. Sorry, not exponential, but it's going to linearly increase. That's what you see in a graph. Today I present here you in front of Qwik. So somehow the Flash has the same logo as Qwik, a little bit same. So I'm going to show you this line there, framework reimagined for the edge. It has some meaning. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So a small lesson on hydration. I think this is a term which everybody heard of it and probably thinks it's a superpower of a framework. But believe me, it's a hack of a framework. So how it works, so we have SPA frameworks out there. And how it works in the SSR world, we send a request to a server, and server renders the entire page. Like, for example, if you have an effect or layout effect, anything, you execute everything there. And the output of those frameworks, output of this hydration is just a static HTML. And you ship that to a browser, and you get a great SEOs. But really bad user experience, because now you have to execute everything on a browser. And there was a time, like somebody asked me, how do you prove this? Yes, you can easily prove it. Just put a JSX tag in there, and you say, if it is server, render A, and if it is client, render B. And you're going to get a very famous Next.js error, which says that server and client tree does not match. And you can also do this by putting a console log in a use effect, which will be executed on both sides. But actually, the output of both the process is actually same. So you are just undoing everything what you have done on a server, and you do everything again on a client. So you are just getting a bill of AWS to get a static HTML file. So let's look into a future. They also call it server-side-cake analogy. So it's something like you make a call to a server, and you bake a cake. And you say, I need a cake. OK, you cannot serialize the cake, right? So you have to send a picture of a cake and tell people how to make a cake and how to order it. So now client see the picture of a cake, how to make it, and order all the ingredients, make the cake itself. But cake was already on a server. You just didn't get it. So let's look into this component. I think everybody's shown counter components. So I will, keeping that in mind, let's look at the counter components. And here, it's a very simple React component. And nothing in there, it's as simple as could be. But I say that if you have a counter component on a page, it's a boring component. You may not even click on that component, because you know counter will just increase the count, right? But there is an event listener there on click, and it is not JavaScript, it is JSX. So you literally have to, in a client, first of all, in a browser, you have to execute this code, attach event listeners, but event listeners cannot be attached on a server, so you serialize the HTML and send it to a client. But in a client, you have to do it because user is really, really, naughty. So he can click anytime. So what you do now, you attach an event listener, but he's also a cheater. He will never click on it. And you end up wasting a resource in a client, which you are never going to do. So I think there is something wrong there. And right now, it's just a counter. It could be anything. It could be adding a cart to a shopping site. It could be fetching a data from a Apollo. It could be anything. So imagine a site like a Figma, where you can do everything, and you have to attach event listeners of each and every function, which user just came on a scene of Figma, and he says, it's boring, so he left. So we have to find a different way of doing it. So I present you a concept of resumability, which you've seen on my first slide. I'm going to present here what is resumability. This term only exists in a Qwik, and innovated by Mishko Hevre himself in 2019, I think, and in ngconf. So everybody have worked with the virtual machine in some way, and you can imagine this in a way that you have initiated a virtual machine, and you gone out in the market, and you came back. you don't initiate the virtual machine again. You just start from where you left. Example, like you're editing a Google Doc, you closed it, you come back, and you start from there. You don't start everything again. And it is very different concept than hydration, because hydration is totally unresumable concept. You do everything on a server, and you do in a client. It doesn't matter. So resumability is something like this. It's a very, what I'll say, a bird eye view of resumability, but I'm going to show the demo of it. So for example, these are fancy names, doesn't matter. But you can imagine them. What you see on the left side is like a use task, take it something like a use layout effect. And render is render, and on use visible types is like an effect. So how it happens on a server, you execute use layout effect, then you execute render, and then you execute use effect. That's what you do on a server. But when you send this code to a client, you do all three things again, right? So what Qwik says, Qwik doesn't differentiate between client and server. So lifecycle of a Qwik component is start in a server and end on a client. Just listen again what I said. It's start on a server and end on a client. That means the component has one life cycle across the internet. So take this in a manner. You execute a task called use task on a server, and then it renders. That's how you get a HTML. It gets paused there. It's sent to this client. And when I send to client over the net, you can only send HTML, and you also can send JSON. But in this case, you only send an HTML, and then a next hook executes. It doesn't execute use task again. You can do it by putting a console log in the use task, and it won't be getting executed in a server. So that's how is the life cycle of a Qwik. And this is a trimmed down version of how resumability look like. So you execute all the logic on a server. On a browser, you literally do nothing. Prefetching is, and user interaction is something is not a part of a hydration, is what user do it. And prefetching is something which enhances this experience. You literally don't have to do anything on a client, on a browser, and your website will be waiting for you to interact to start. And literally, there will be no JavaScript. And how it does it, I'm going to show this in a second. So for a second, like just look at the step one. It is, again, a famous counter example. And just note down those two dollars there. So what Qwik has this special $, which is like a lazy loaded boundaries on the Qwik framework. Anytime you put a dollar in a Qwik, it is a lazy loaded not lazy loaded component, but you can say lazy loaded units. So you can lazy load events, you can lazy load components, you can lazy load data, you can lazy load literally everything. So I would say that in this example, if you look at the step one, there is on-click, and there is an inline event there. And it is coupled in a $. So this is what you write. And I don't think so this is tough after having Mohammed's session on a SolidJS. It's just Signal. And what you see on the right side, Qwik does this optimizer and break this into a lot of chunks. And what happens on a step 3, when the user requests the data, it gets what you see on a serialized HTML. Everything is there. And see that arrow there, it has on-click serialized string there. So when user going to click on it, your Qwik loader in the browser is going to load only this chunk. And if you see this chunk, it has something called use lexical scope. I'm not going to talk about that today because it's a totally new topic here. But you thinking of resumability is just like that when you click on it, it only gets you an on-click function. So you have literally broken the function into a smaller chunk that gets realized into HTML and send it over the wire when you click on it. And if you don't click on it, it will never get shipped. Just look at this. There is not even a framework out there. So Qwik works even without framework being shipped to get interactive. So I'm going to show you a small demo of resumability. So I forgot. Yes. OK, it's running. Yeah, so this is one of the app from Qwik guys. Yes, so can I run it? Perfect. So this is a to-do app, really famous app, and it's in a, let me do like test here. So it is like nothing special in there, but just making it sure that I'm also running this on a Safari here. Yes, I'm also running on Safari. And it's not saved on server side just to show that. So they are in totally different state. And you are in the application in a particular state, right? So what I'm going to do right now, I'm gonna inspect this. Can I? Oh yeah. No, I have to select this. Sorry. So $0 dot Qwik dot pause. By the way, you're never gonna do this in real life, but I'm doing this because I have to show you a demo. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna edit the HTML, and I'm gonna copy this HTML. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the Safari, and I'm gonna, again, just to make it sure, I'm gonna just do BAM here. So it is it's also in working stage, totally different way, it doesn't matter. So what I'm gonna do now is edit this HTML, and what I'm gonna do, going to copy that HTML from there to here. Ha, big deal, right? It's HTML, like it will just work, like you're copy pasting. But the fun part starts, is this app interactive right here? It is. So you literally have copied the HTML from one browser to another. Imagine, take that browser as a server, and this is a client, and it works. And believe me, if this doesn't blow your mind, you have to think twice. So what I do again, I play again, right? Perfect. So this is how resumability it is. You're never going to do this. Don't try this at home. But yeah, this is how the Qwik does it for you. So right now on a Twitter and everywhere, there is like a huge wave of anti-JavaScript JavaScript club. So what it does is that every framework is trying to limit the amount of JavaScript. And that is not wrong. That's a really good approach. And every framework out there doing it. But did you ever guys notice the frameworks are just, I don't know, 1 MB? And we are crying about it? Why it is 1 MB is nothing. But we have to understand that JavaScript is very different than other resources. JavaScript can block your browser. You can literally write a one for loop and create 1,000 arrays in a one line, and it will block you. Like literally 1 KB of JavaScript can bring your Chrome down because JavaScript has to be executed. So problem is not in the JavaScript size. Problem is in JavaScript nature. So what Qwik says is that JavaScript downloading is not a problem. JavaScript execution is a problem. You have to delay the execution of a JavaScript. I have to be a little bit quick here. So. And next thing about performance. OK, we have a lot of talk about performance. But you have to understand, you have to divide the performance in 2 parts, startup performance and runtime performance. And I can assure you that none of the frameworks right now have a problem with a runtime performance. It never happens that when you click on a button, the function executed like in 5 seconds. It will not happen. What's the problem is your JavaScript load is slow. That's why we have to break this pattern of split the performance in 2 times, runtime perf and start perf. And Qwik is all for runtime perf because Qwik is for a startup perf. Runtime perf is not even a problem. So Qwik works in something like a video streaming model. So if you open a Netflix, it has a movies of like 10 GB if you're walking up 4K. But you don't download all of them. When you watch them, it downloads more and more. And what Qwik says is that I'm going to send you application, but not going to send you any JavaScript. The more you're going to interact, when I say more you're going to interact, it's not like more you're going to look. It's like more you're going to interact, like more you're going to click, more you're going to scroll. It is going to download as per your interaction. So it's totally a streaming model at very, I would say, a micro level. And, OK, fancy animation. But it also has something called speculative module fetching. I'm not going to read too much about it, but imagine this. You have a page, and if you have a lot of buttons in there, they have something called speculative module fetching, which detects what you're going to click. And you can also optimize this based on your need, and you can download them in a service worker. OK, then make that 10. So, so next time, I'm not going to look at you. So. So finally, speculative module fetching is something like when you, OK, I'm not enough for it. So let me move to the next slide. So Qwik also have signals. But I would say signals are the primitives. It came from knockout ages. And I'm not going to talk much about signals here, because signals itself is a very deep concept. And if you want to know more about it, I have some announcement at last slide. But for Qwik, signals is not not something which they want to do it. It's something which they have to do it. If you understand signals a lot, signals are surgical in nature. It means that if you see something on a left side, if your systems are coarse-grained reactive, and if you want to do something on a cart, you literally have to start entire rendering from the top, because there is only one way to start your app, from top to bottom. But Qwik doesn't work like that. Qwik breaks your app into so many chunks that you can literally start with just button. So you can have a cart button, and when you click on it, the only thing you're going to do is add a cart button. And Signal is a requirement of a Qwik. Signal is not something which they want to sell because it's a hype term. What about routing? Like, I did not even spoke about routing, all the fancy features. So you have to understand one thing. Qwik and QuickCity are two different frameworks. Qwik is a core framework. In a current atmosphere, Qwik solves a lot of problems which meta frameworks are solving, like SSR and all the fancy stuff, but it is all built in a QuickCity. And built in a Qwik, and QuickCity has these fancy thing called routing, router loaders, form actions, layouts, endpoints, and server dollar also. Finally, Qwik is in release candidate stage, and Dave is coming here, and I'm done. So finally, in what level Qwik should use? Like, this is again a research done by Ron Canonato from SolidJS. He said Qwik is really good for e-commerce, because in e-commerce you need SEO and you need a startup perf, and that's where the Qwik shines. Finally, this graph, UX is as important as DX. I think we have lost this idea over the period of time. We have been working on a really good DX, but forgot the UX. Qwik says UX is as important as DX, and that's what it sells. And if you know more about Qwik, I'm an organizer of a Qwik Amsterdam community. We are going to do a same meetup here next week. We're going to talk much more about Qwik and Signals. If you want to know more about just then, the Signals are much deeply. Our very own Salam Ashush is going to talk about it here. So please do come. It's free pizzas, and same place. So. And I'm going to speak one more line, OK? So, and I'm last guy, right? You guys are leaving after this. So I feel like NPM trends, GitHub stars, and a pub doc, or it's maybe sometimes it is not a right metric to use it. Because I feel if that would be a right metric, we will be still working on WordPress and jQuery, because our 80% web still runs on that. So probably we need a better way to decide what to use. That's where I end my talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Suwi.